So you probably can't even find Marine Corps units issuing these out, and they issue out the oldest equipment I've ever seen. So
I know, duct taping it together and dragging it on to the next year.
Yeah, so you probably know better than anyone what I'm talking about when I say we're Frankensteining these
breakages,
things. Yeah,
just slapping it together.
Yep.
Yep.
Good. So, which leads me to our current state, right? We have this mixed bag. I didn't know what to title the slide, so I called it mixed bag. We have this mixed bag of rifles and parts. The thing is all these things aged a little differently, right? Like maybe the one that I was issued went to Vietnam, did 3 tours in Vietnam and 1 tour in Desert Storm. Maybe the one that Sergeant Pettit was issued did 5 tours in Vietnam or whatever, right? So they all have varying tolerances and wear. What that means is that I can't, because the wear is so great and the tolerance stacking. When I say tolerance stacking is so the military military specifications for, the tolerances between parts is going to specify plus or minus X amount of inches or 0.0 amount of inches. Well, what happens is as one breaks down and that tolerance becomes greater, it exaggerates the difference in tolerances that was already present until we end up with some cases rifles that are no longer functional because they don't fit together anymore, right? Or the parts don't fit, aren't housed. I'm trying to do this without getting into the technical terms for the weapon pieces, but where things aren't fitting no more because they're real worn out. How about that? What that means though is when I say I had Sergeant Pettit here and he's a new guy and I'm training him on rifle stuff and I'm like, okay, well he has this rifle and I train him to do this manipulation, right? Okay, this is how we change a magazine, and I have him insert that magazine. Well, this rifle, the mag well's super out of spec and the bolt catch is no longer functional. The mag catch is no longer functional, and so he has to slam it in and also press this button at the same time, right? Because it's not how it should be, but that's what he has to do to make it work. So that's how I have to teach him to make it work. And then that rifle inevitably breaks because our rifles break right and left. That rifle inevitably breaks, so I give him a new rifle, and now it doesn't. Now he can't do that same manipulation. He has to relearn how to do a magazine change. All right. That is not good. It's really time consuming on the instructor side because I'll have a guy who is doing all right. He's displaying an acceptable level of proficiency. His rifle breaks. I give him a new rifle, and now I have to reteach him how to do a basic manipulation. And it's like we're starting over at square zero every time. So, in addition to that, we have, like I said, we're Frankensteining these rifles together. So we have barrels that are, some have been replaced. We have some barrels that are, so on this table, by the way, we got the varieties of our patrol rifles that we have out, right? So they're all vastly different. This is the old M16A1. So this has a 20 or 18 and a half inch, do you know? 18 and a half? 20?
I think 18 and a half, what, 7?
Come on, you're wrong. No?
It's different.
Yeah. They didn't issue these out back in
It was A2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you had a newer, even back when you were in, you had newer rifles than we do.
Newer, yes.
You were, yeah.
Man, and he was in like the
2000,
freaking Revolutionary War or something. So anyway, these have a certain barrel length and a certain twist rate, and I'll talk about what that is in a second. Versus these ones that we issue out have a different barrel length and a different twist rate. So all these barrel specifications vary greatly, which makes ammunition selection extremely difficult. Is my next slide ammunition? Can you see on there? Yes. Okay, cool. So I'm going in the right direction. So it makes ammunition selection extremely difficult, and I'll explain why in a second. But on the ammunition note, some of our deputies have old duty ammunition that was issued by the administration before last, which is an actual duty type ammunition. The last administration, not the current one, but the one before, that was in charge when I took over, or when I got hired, issued out practice ammunition. It's labeled as such on the box. It's I'll explain why it's inadequate, but they issued out a different type of ammunition, a practice ammunition, as the duty ammunition. And so that's kind of what kicked me down this whole thing a year and a half ago. I'm like, holy crap, we need to We need to fix some stuff, especially as it pertains to patrol rifles within the sheriff's office, because it's not it's inadequate for our purposes. So go ahead and hit the next slide. So like I said, we currently issue a practice ammunition for duty use. So I get really in the weeds on stuff. I'm going to try to keep this, without misrepresenting anything, I'm going to try to keep this as surface level as possible, right? So when we accept that sometimes law enforcement has to shoot people. We have no other choice but to fire a weapon at someone. Sometimes that happens. I think we can all accept that. When we do so, I think we can also all agree that the less times that we shoot someone, the better, right? We're trying to stop an active threat if we're doing that. The less times that I have to shoot someone, the happier I am. Okay, no one wants to shoot another person. So when I start talking about, I don't want you guys to think that when I start talking about lethality, I just want these super deadly rounds or anything. No, what I want is something that will effectively stop the threat as quickly as possible and with the fewest amount of rounds flying through the air as possible. So the current practice ammunition, it's commonly referred to as ball ammunition. The closest kind of example I can equate it to that there is data on. There's absolutely no data on how this current round that we issue performs when it hits someone, because it's not designed to do that. So no one's tested it because it's just target ammunition. So the closest thing I can equate it to is M193 ball, which is Vietnam era military ammunition. So it's a solid lead core, and it's got a thin copper jacket around it. All right. What it's designed to do upon impact is it enters the body at a high rate of speed. So these things were kicking, these M16A1s were kicking these bullets out at about 3,100 feet per second. So it's supposed to enter the body at a high rate of speed, and generally the number that you hear from U.S. Army testing is 2,600 feet per second. It needs to enter the body at 2,600 feet per second to do what it's designed to do. It yaws and it tumbles, and the copper jacket breaks apart. It causes what's called secondary wound tracks, and then the lead jacket, the lead core creates the primary wound channel. Now at that high velocity, in addition to the bullet, it's a crushing mechanism. It's not a cutting. In addition to it crushing flesh on its way through, it also is dumping so much velocity. It's losing all that velocity rapidly. All that energy has to go somewhere. So what it does is it displaces the tissue and radially around the path of the bullet. What I mean is as the bullet goes, it displaces tissue like that, right? And it can cause significant damage to vital structures, inches away from the bullet's actual path because of that. Human tissue has a certain elasticity. If we exceed that, we cause permanent damage, or we cause damage. So what that means is with a rifle bullet firing at a really high velocity, you don't necessarily have to hit a vital structure like a heart in order to make the heart stop working, right? It just has to be in that general area. Now, I'm not talking about the pseudoscience, hydrostatic shock, or anything like that. The jury's still out on that. But this temporary wound cavity is a documented effect that is known. The FBI has a lot of papers on it, if you guys are curious. That is a real thing. So that's one of the great reasons for rifle lethality versus pistol lethality. Pistol bullets don't travel at a high enough velocity it does create a temporary wound cavity, but it's not at a high enough velocity to exceed that elasticity threshold of human tissue, so it will not cause an interruption in the function of vital organs. So the way pistol bullets are designed to work is to make as big a hole as possible to dump blood out in order to drop blood pressure so a person goes unconscious. That can take a lot of time versus immediately interfering with a vital structure. So that's all fine and dandy if you have M193 ball ammunition and you're launching it at 3,100 feet per second. We're not. We have practice ammo that is kind of like M193 ball, but it's got a much thicker copper jacket, and so it doesn't separate as it's supposed to. This is one I recovered from ballistic gelatin. So it doesn't separate like it's supposed to, and it actually stays 100% intact. And it's also not traveling through our rifles